Following Spanish rule and following Cuba being a Spanish colony, in the ways that Cuba wanted to conceive their own national identity, they started to look at what it meant to be Cuban, this idea of being Cuban, la cubanidad. And they saw that a central element of being Cuban is this mixing, this idea of different ethnicities coming together and forming one cohesive Cuban identity. And this was made very popular by the ethnologist and thinker Fernando Ortiz, and the most famous and lauded example and model for this is called transculturation, where it discusses the coming together of African, European, indigenous, and Asian elements in what he calls an ajiaco, this idea of a stew, where we have ingredients from these different areas coming together to form one dish, and that dish is the Cuban dish of identity. And many times in talking about transculturation and talking about this convergence, we find that specific elements, usually European and African convergences and intersections, have been privileged above all others, or above each of them being equally, or there's a lack of looking into the indigenous, the Caribbean, and also the Asian elements. So we can see that many examples of writing and research and investigation of the formation of Cuban identity doesn't speak too much on the Chinese influence there, and sometimes it misses the Chinese interactions in this Cuban identity formation as a whole. So we have at play some racism, we have at play some ideas that the Chinese were not wanted within the idea of a formation of a Cuban identity, and that I call yellow blindness, this blindness of Asian and Chinese influence in Cuban culture.